In Poland, the beautiful Tatra mountains are not that high compared to other ranges in Europe, but they are steep, rocky, and their relative heights are big. There are lots of accidents and events and deaths. Many are used to hearing that some tourist got lost or fell or became injured or died. Some people are lost forever, probably stuck in caves, impassable ravines or crevices, but it is usually most probable and justified to say that they died of exposure or an accident and stayed in the mountains forever. But here lies a different type of case, to add to the mystery of the Tatra Mountains. Perhaps one of the most perplexing yet and really unresolved mysteries to date. It happened on the 3rd of August in 1925. Krakow's notable attorney, Kazimierz Kaźnika, his wife Waleria, and their 12-year-old son were on a hiking trip. They slept and ate their breakfast in the mountain shelter in the Valley of Five Ponds. They planned to go down the mountains to the famous resort town of Zakopane. It's about 16 kilometers to walk, first uphill to a high ice pass, then a long walk through Sycamore Valley and down to the town. The only difficult part is to get up to the pass, but still it's not extreme. Nowadays it's a regular mountain trail with high traffic. They got unlucky with the weather. It was windy, cold, and it snowed a bit in the morning. Later it rained. At the shelter, the family asked a group of 4 experienced hikers and mountaineers to allow them to join them. They wanted to feel safe in their company. Around 11:30, both parties jointly set off from the shelter. 2 of the mountaineers were not happy with the company of the less experienced and slower hikers. There was a problem with the attorney. The rain flooded his glasses, without which he could not see a thing. Every now and then, they had to stop and wait in the freezing wind for him to wipe his glasses. Only one of them, Zbigniew Wasserberger, patiently helped the Kaźnika family above the ice pond, where the trail goes straight up the pass. 3 of the mountaineers rebelled and announced that it is not necessary for all of them to escort the family, but it's enough for one of them to stay and help. The rest will go forward. Wasserberger agreed with the reasoning of the friends and decided that he will stay with the family. Thus the 3 climbers started to ascend the ice pass at a rapid pace. In the evening they safely reached Zakopane. Meanwhile, the Kaźnika family with Wasserberger reached the pass after approximately 3 hours' walk from the shelter. Note that according to the transit time guides for the intermediate tourists on this route, it is only 1 hour 15 minutes. When the family with their guide reached the ice pass, the weather went totally bad. It started to hail, the wind intensified, as indeed is typical on the ridge. Wasserberger hurried them, hoping that on the other side of the ridge below the pass, the wind weakens and the conditions would be more favorable. First they started to descend, and then suddenly to die. During the descent, the youngest Kaźnika family member began to complain that he was losing his breath. The mother took the boy's backpack, and Wasserberger helped him go. At about 4 o'clock they found themselves in the vicinity of the frog pond in the Sycamore Valley. It seemed that the worst had already passed when suddenly the father sat on the rock with the words, quote, "I am very tired. I cannot go further," end quote. The first instinct of Valeria was to ask Wasserberger for help, as he was the strongest and most experienced team member. And then she heard a terrifying, incomprehensible straight answer, quote, "I am also very weak," end quote. She took her son and Wasserberger around a boulder, giving little cover from the wind. She gave them both cognac she had in a hip flask and some chocolate for her son. She came back to her husband, who was in a very bad condition at this point. She also gave him a sip of cognac. Kaźnika did not have the strength to reach the boulder, so she left him for a moment and went back to her son and Wasserberger. They were dying. Wasserberger became frantic. Valeria almost forcibly compelled him to remain in place and then returned to her husband. He was dead. In despair, she ran to her son. He lay rigid and motionless. A few steps down, she saw Wasserberger's corpse, who in agony managed to snatch up, walk a few meters, and then fell dead, his arms wounded, as well as his head. According to the autopsy, He then broke his arm. Valeria, besides physical and mental exhaustion, was feeling normal, but did not know what to do. She just stayed there and sat by the bodies for 37 hours. She had a blanket and small gas burner to warm up, hoping to meet someone passing by. On the 5th of August, she decided to go down to the Sycamore Valley and reach the Bald Clearing, a small village with an outpost of Tatra Mountain rescue personnel. There she met Marusz Jaruski, the head of the Tatra Mountain Rescue. Jaruski heard the incredible story and immediately sent rescuers to the place of the tragedy. 3 bodies were escorted down the mountains to Zakopane. There was an investigation and the bodies were autopsied, but we still do not know why the boy and 2 men, including a young, fit mountaineer, died suddenly at the same time. It was suspected that the cause was the cognac that they all drank, but Valeria did not touch. She was even suspected of poisoning them, but why and what for would she do this? Besides, they felt weak before they drank the cognac. The boy had shortness of breath and complained of difficulty in breathing. The cause of death could also be a vacuum, sometimes occurring on one side of the ridge caused by a strong wind. But why did it not kill the woman? Likewise, if the cause of death was to bad weather and strong wind, which blowing in their faces also made it very hard to breathe, then why did the men die and the woman survive, not even experiencing any symptoms? An autopsy revealed pulmonary edema and cardiac arrest for unknown reasons in all 3 bodies. Additionally, Kazimierz Kajnika's autopsy revealed a heart defect and calcifications of small veins that might have caused a heart attack during the physical exercise, but it did not at this time. The beginnings of the same heart defect were also discovered in the boy's heart, but on the level too low to even be noticeable for the child. Those findings are also a suggestion that the autopsies were thorough and professional. Wasserberger, however, was absolutely healthy and fit, and once more he previously had to deal with much more difficult conditions in the mountainous terrain. The proceedings were then discontinued. In this case, we have to remember that every part of this story is based on Valeria's testimony. She was the one and only witness to which seemed to make her more of a suspect than a victim. The mystery continues.